Instead of getting my knickers in a knot and having sleepless nights about the mental well-being of other people's children, I'm just going to focus on what you actually want. So, without further ado, let me tell you about the most popular episodes that have been on Blooming Curious since it started in November last year. Hello and welcome to Blooming Curious, the podcast that's all about nurturing that natural curiosity and love of learning in our elementary children and students. I'm Edwina, your host, and I'm on a mission to keep children curious and excited about learning. The days of talk and chalk are over. We're exploring the strategies that create engaged, lifelong learners. So if you're a classroom or homeschool educator, or even a curious parent, looking for creative, meaningful ways to engage children and move beyond the traditional classroom approach, then this is the place for you. And welcome to another episode of Blooming Curious. As we head towards the end of the year, I thought we would analyze the top 5 or 6 episodes of the past year. Since I started the podcast on the 28th of November, and looking back at the most popular and downloaded episodes was quite an eye-opener for me. Not so much in terms of the most popular, but more so in terms of the least listened to episodes that have been recorded. Listeners didn't show much interest in episode 17, why curiosity is declining in our classrooms, nor in episode 6, the 10 tips to get kids off screens, nor episode 4, how to minimize technology in children's lives, nor episode 46, how to better engage our students. And looking at these stats actually made me quite despondent, and because it appears that the very things that I see happening in classrooms, the things that are most detrimental to children's learning and development, no one else appears to be bothered by. So that begs the question, what am I doing this for? Do I even continue along this path, highlighting the dire straits that our children are in, or do I just pretend it doesn't matter and focus on the things that people want more of? And so instead of getting my knickers in a knot and having sleepless nights about the mental well-being of other people's children, I'm just going to focus on what you actually want. So without further ado, let me tell you about the most popular episodes that have been on Blooming Curious since it started in November last year. Episode 1 was my very first episode when I introduced Blooming Curious and why I felt that curiosity is so important for children. I highlighted that before we can even begin teaching kids to read and write, we need to cultivate a burning desire in them to want to know more and to be curious. And of course, I created an e-guide for you on how to develop natural curiosity in children. I'll leave a link for you in the show notes, as well as a link to the great blog post that talks all about how we as adults and educators can help to nurture and keep kids curious, since we're all born with that natural innate curiosity, but it wanes over time. Episode 36 was the next most popular episode, the most effective strategies for student learning. These are 10 instructional practices that reliably increase student learning, and they emerge from the studies and findings across Australian and international schools and the work of John Hattie and Robert Mazzano, who took these findings and ranked them by their level of effectiveness in student learning, otherwise known as their effect size. And I unpacked those top strategies in episode 36 and highlighted how the driver of all these strategies is actually you and me. We teachers make the difference. And to be really effective, it all starts with the right mindset. Having an inquiry and a growth mindset and trying new strategies when we see our students being disengaged and not being afraid to fail, and allowing our students to see us fail so that they become better at taking risks. In this episode, I linked my e-guide Inquiry 101, which takes you through the step-by-step process of integrating curiosity-inspired lessons into your existing lessons. I'll leave a link for you in the show notes. The next most popular episode was number 26, which was an interview with the amazing Jessica Vance. Jessica is the author of Leading with a Lens of Inquiry, which is a publication aimed at school leaders. But in this episode, we talked about learning walls. And Jess talked about how the walls in our classrooms are actually the third teacher, and that it would be missed opportunity if we did not leverage our walls as an opportunity to be able to support and co-construct the learning alongside our learners. Jess walked us through the process of starting a learning wall and how a learning wall becomes an interactive space where our learners can connect with a learning journey across the curriculum. She also spoke about learning walls helping children to make connections between subject areas, because so often children have difficulty making those connections between, say, English and science or maths and science. So the learning wall is a visual tool that helps children make those connections. Jess also encouraged us not to do teaching alone, that we need to be vulnerable if we want to grow as educators, to be open to feedback. And she suggested we all have a critical friend, someone that can help us see the blind spots and our biases. Teaching can be very lonely, especially when you're perhaps doing things that no one else is doing in your school. So we all need to have a sense of belonging. So I would recommend you sign up to Get Curious, my weekly newsletter, where I share strategies and tips and generally give you a pep talk and inspire you as an educator. So join a group of like-minded people and sign up to Get Curious. I'll leave a link for you in the show notes. Now, setting up an outdoor environment for children was the topic of episode 12. And here I spoke about providing children with opportunities to play and to learn outdoors, and that it is a real opportunity for teachers and schools to provide play and learning experiences for children that they might not be getting in their own homes. In this episode, I talked educators through the process of setting up an outdoor space where children can play, where they can have opportunities to move and be physical, and also opportunities where they can be creative or even quiet. I also offered you some advice and examples of how we can set up an outdoor learning environment on a budget and how to connect the learning experiences outdoors to our curriculum. I also provided links to websites where you can learn more about planning an outdoor learning experience, as well as to my lesson plan for the picture book, The Curious Garden, written by Peter Brown, which is a perfect picture book and a lesson plan if you intend to plant a garden in your outdoor space. And really, why wouldn't you? Episode 24 was another big hit, and it was my interview with the queen of outdoor learning, Dr. Claire Warden. Claire is a font of knowledge when it comes to planning learning experiences for children to connect them with the natural world. She talked about risk and how we navigate that. She talked about curiosity and how children have become emotionally fearful and unable to engage in problem solving. She spoke about how children are increasingly finding curiosity difficult because they're worried about failure. Claire spoke about her findings and her research on how the unpredictability of nature and the outdoors is such a powerful catalyst for curiosity. And she also gave us lots of actionable and practical advice on how we as educators can plan learning experiences using the outdoors and loose parts, as well as how we can plan and document learning using floor books. Claire Warden really is such an inspiration. If you work with young children or you're raising young children, then this is the episode you really must not miss. Claire was such an inspiration for me and the reason that I changed the way that I taught. And hand on heart, it's made such a difference to children's learning, to their creativity and their curiosity and their overall well-being. So when you have finished listening to this episode, then do yourself a favor and go to the show notes and click on the links to listen to these popular episodes. My very first interview was with my friend Ash Sharp, and this was episode 13. Ash is an early childhood educator who started a loose parts play business in Geraldton, Western Australia. We spoke about the powerful benefits of play, and particularly loose parts play, where children can be creative, where they can take risks, and where they can learn in their most natural way. And Ash shared her story of why she left the classroom to pursue her passion of encouraging children to play more, hence the name of her business. We spoke of the limitations and the frustrations that we as educators often experience in schools and classrooms, and how ultimately as educators we sometimes have a difficult decision to make when our jobs don't align with our values and what we know about what is best for children and the way they learn. And lastly, episode 25, my interview with playground designer Marcus Veerman, who is also the designer and founder of that little nifty toy you might be seeing on social media called the Noodle Cart and the Noodle Pod. We spoke about how Marcus's playgrounds have brought joy to millions of children around the world, and how his new inventions, the Noodle Cart and Noodle Pod, are replacing all those annoying plastic toys that just end up in landfill with something that is not only sustainable and beautiful, but also creative and allows children to build their critical thinking and their problem-solving skills. Marcus really is a super passionate person when it comes to play and how children learn through play. And honestly, if you or your school are thinking about purchasing loose parts or resources in the new year, or you're considering redoing your playground or your outdoor space, I would urge you to listen to this episode before you go off and spend money. So that's a wrap of the most popular episodes so far on Blooming Curious. And before I sign off, I want to let you know that I will be taking a break in December, so no new episodes will be appearing then. So I urge you to click on that follow or subscribe button so you get notified when a new episode is published. And also, make sure you sign up to Get Curious, my inspirational monthly newsletter with practical, actionable steps that you can take not only to get the best out of your students, but it's also a little bit of a pep talk to help you stay on top of your game. So check out the show notes for all the links, including how to sign up for Get Curious. Thanks for listening today. And remember, curiosity is not just a trait, it's a superpower. So until next time, stay blooming curious.